Hello, folks. The report that you're about to look at is from the Vernon Township District Reopening Committee. And what the committee tried to do is take a look at all of the concerns that the community would have, that our teachers would have, that parents would have about reopening in September, making sure to follow the guidelines from the state, as well as everything else that we could get our hands on in order to get information out to you. This is a report that is a process. Today is June 12th, and we're basically moving forward as we try to guide our way through the process of opening the schools. So I wanted to show you some of the things that we were looking at, give you an overview of the report, show you who was on the committee and what we were trying to do, and let you know that this is a process that will continue to change, morph into whatever we feel is finally the best decision for our parents, for our children, and for our community. So let's take a look at this report and see where we are with this process. Last night, I presented this report to the Board of Ed, and I told them that these were the folks that were on the committees. There was 23 people on the original committee for the district, and then subgroups were formed by those people so that other people were involved in the process as well. There was 23 people on our committee, and then the subgroups usually brought in 4 or 5 more people. So overall, we had over 100 people working in this process. In health, we had Mrs. Toth, and she used all of the nurses in our district for their report. In safety, we had Mr. Wallach, and he used administrators as well as other key safety people, RPOs, in our district. Their report was phenomenal. Online curriculum, Mr. Rogers, Mr. Gagliostro, and Mr. Shea. And of course, they're working on the options that you're going to see in some of the scenarios for online learning for our students. We're working on bolstering that and brandishing that program and making sure that we use instructional design people in our district. We have people with master's degrees and also certifications in design learning, and we'll be working on that all summer. Most of that work will be paid for by the grant. The grant comes from the CARES grant from the federal government, which will also pay for the PPEs, all the protective wear that we will have for our students and our teachers, such things as the thermometers and other things that we have ordered. So a grant is paying for most of that. Traditional curriculum will be done this summer as well as we start to work on what it will be like if we return in the fall. So Mr. Rogers, Ms. Gagliostro, Ms. Smith, Ms. Sweeney, Ms. Cleary, and myself are working on that. Ms. Cleary, of course, is from Glen Meadow. Ms. Sweeney is kindergarten, and Ms. Smith is from the high school. So we wanted to make sure that we had the different age ranges in that committee. Special education, Ms. Merrill, Ms. Goodenkoff, and Dr. Konopinski, of course, will be working in that field. Mental health, we're worried about the transitions of our students, whether it's special ed or mental health concerns for all of our students. So Ms. Goodenkoff, Ms. Merrill, Ms. Van Orden, and Dr. Konopinski will be working on that. Facilities, which is a major piece to all of this. Mr. Kepnes, Mr. Storms, Ms. Gebhardt, and Ms. Van Orden are working on all that. Things such as what would a quarantine room look like, making sure there's ventilation in all of our rooms, and also overall the cleanliness of the buildings and making sure we are cleaning them in a very rapid way, on a constant way, and often many times during the day. So there'll be more on that as we talk in July and August. And then food services with Ms. Remner and Sodexo. And Sodexo is a national corporation. So the big piece there is the fact that they are giving us insight from a national point of view on what to do about food service with our children. Transportation is another major piece. And Ms. Van Gils has done an amazing job with her report, along with Mr. Foley, who's, of course, concerned about after-school busing for sports and activities. And Ms. Van Gils, of course, has given us different scenarios that are concerned with distance learning. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. Technology with Mr. Shea, of course, the magic Matt Shea, and Mrs. Van Orden, Mr. Senzo. They're working diligently to make sure that we have everything that we have now and more with our programs, especially if we're doing some of it online next year. Parent outreach, I can't thank these two folks enough, Miss Lally and Miss McCann, who have done an amazing job getting letters out to parents. And also, along with Ms. Davino and Mr. Foley, releasing that major survey today. So please, please take part in that survey. We want as many voices as we possibly can. That helps us with input with this survey that you're about to look at, and with this report you're about to look at. Communications, myself, Ms. Davina, will be getting everything out to you. We are going to plan on calling for different meetings with the community. We will roll things out as we know better of what is expected or what we can expect from the state of New Jersey. And then faculty buy-in, Ms. Gebhardt, Ms. Van Orden, Mr. Berge, head of the union, Ms. Smith, the new head of the union, Mrs. Sweeney and Mrs. Cleary, and the idea of working with our faculty to make sure that they are safe, that they feel comfortable, and that they can give your children the best possible education. And then administration buy-in. We'll be talking to the administrators as well on what we expect from each of the buildings. But again, the principals have formed their own committees. They're going to be informed by this report. They are also doing things that are just centric to their buildings, and all of that will come together to make for the best possible environment. I do want to thank Mr. Annunziato and Dr. Peak for all of their efforts with the Board of Ed. They helped with the presentation last evening, and it was very nice to work with the Board of Ed last evening to report this out. Okay, this report was published yesterday. It's a living document subject to direction from the state of New Jersey. So I want to make sure before I break into the document that everyone understands that this is just, if you will, draft one. But we have to start to do things in order to prepare for September. We want to make sure that people get approved for curriculum work. We want to make sure that we put orders in for the PPEs, which I'm telling everybody now, that has been done. Thousands of things have been ordered in order to make sure that we are prepared for the school year. This is a table of contents. The report is divided into 8 different pieces. There's an introduction that I read last evening. There's the scenarios, which is 1 through 6, which is the ideas that we have about different ways to open. The subcommittee reports, and I want to encourage you, if you're going to go through this document, to read the subcommittee reports. There's 12 subcommittees. They did an amazing amount of work. We met 5 times, but they met another 3 or 4 times to put together their report. So there's a lot of work that went into the subcommittee reports, and there's a lot of details that answer a lot of questions for our parents. So I want to make sure that you saw that. And then the results of the Vernon staff, we had 373 people respond to the survey that was put out by that committee, and the results are in there. So it's very interesting what some of our folks, whether it was teachers, whether it was RPOs, whether it was secretaries, whether it was administrators, what they had to say. And then if you see number 5, that's the Vernon survey that I'm talking about, and that's the one we want you to be involved with. So you'll see the questions from the parent survey. That's in a Word doc, so you can see that. Click on that. But again, after you're finished with this report, please go on our website and fill out the survey. It should take you about 10 minutes, but it's worth it. Then what I did was I published some information from the CDC so that you're aware of that. I also published some information from the state of New Jersey about how we can clean. I then published in section 7 what the ESS funds or ESSER funds say we can spend money on. And then a big document from the state of New Jersey about the new normal in public schools. Now, we have not received a report from the state yet, but we do have that. And then there's 2 reports there from states that have already put work out. One is Maryland and the other is Georgia. And we're hearing, Ms. Davino has been saying that she heard, and I think she's absolutely correct, that the Georgia report will be sort of a predecessor for what New Jersey does. They'll be building off of that idea of 3 different ways. If things are bad with the coronavirus, what we would have to do. If things are somewhere in the middle with the epidemic and what's happening in the area of New Jersey, what we would have to do. And then if we're basically in a situation where there's less going on, and then what we would do for the safety of our children. So that's the complete report. The goal of the introduction was to establish that this study is part of a much larger discussion in the state as well as the nation, and that we want what's best for our children, our parents, our teachers, and our community. So when you read the introduction, I sort of give you like a state and national view, maybe a historical point in that last paragraph about where we are, and what we need to do. So the way I put it together was I just wanted people to have an overview that we're concerned about this, but so is the state of New Jersey, and so is the nation. So we'll look to people who have some ideas to make sure that we get all the answers for you. There are 6 scenarios, 12 subcommittee reports, surveys of staff and parents, and the guidance material, all sitting online waiting for you. The scenarios look like this, and when you open it up, you'll see that we wrote out the scenario. It's 6 to 7 pages per scenario, and we have 6 scenarios that are possible for the opening of the Vernon schools in September. Now, the scenarios may change even amongst themselves. We may start to see one that looks good, but then we have to tweak it based on what we now know in July or in August. Those are the committee reports. And of course, in red, it tells you what committee it is, and then tells you the members of the committee. So you're aware of all the people that wrote that report. And again, if you're friends with any of these people have done monumental effort in order to make sure this report gets out early. It's only June 12th, but we wanted to make sure this all got out. And then the results of the district reopening survey, and this was done by the subcommittee for teachers and staff and what they felt. So you can see the classroom aides were part of this, school secretaries, administrators, and of course our teaching staff. Here are the 6 scenarios that the report examines. The first scenario is the possibility of reopening in September with social distancing and students wearing masks. It will also offer an online option for all students. This one is difficult for many reasons, but the social distancing probably is the biggest part. The part that plays out in transportation, it plays out in the cafeteria, it plays out in any large gatherings, and it plays out in the classroom. This online option for students would be something where the parents would opt to not send their students to school. And as I said before, we're building with our design team all of these learning possibilities or modules for our students in each of the academic areas so that students can learn online if the parents choose not to send them back to school. Second scenario, reopening in September with social distancing and masks, and all 4 grades of the high school being online, then taking the 7th and 8th grade and bringing them to the high school, spreading out the rest of the district, including possibly using Walnut Ridge, and the idea of spreading and creating as many socially distant places as possible. With the removal of 1,000 of 3,000 students, it gives us a better opportunity to try to social distance and make sure our students are safe. In this option, there would also be the online option for all students, K through 8, and then the high school, it will be online as mandatory. So that's option 2 or scenario 2. Scenario 3 would be reopening in September, but with a 3-day alternate plan. And the 3-day schedule would work like this. 1/3 of our students would be coming in on a Monday. The second third of students would be coming in on a Tuesday. The third and final group would be coming in on a Wednesday. And then we would rotate back to the Monday group would then come in on Thursday, and the Tuesday group Friday, and the Wednesday group the following Monday. It would guarantee that your students would be in school 3 days every 2 weeks. It would be a connection to the teachers. It would give us time or the space to socially distance because we would only have basically 1,000 students in and 2,000 students at home. The online learning piece would be all set up just like we have now, and there would be connections with the teachers. The 4th scenario is reopening in September without social distancing, but with masks. If the government or the state of New Jersey decides that we don't need social distancing, then we would have masks. We would make sure that online was available because some people are just not going to be comfortable with this. And we would have all 3,000 students back with masks. There are problems with every scenario. One of the problems with this scenario, of course, is eating. We've talked about all sorts of things that we would do with this scenario if we were able to bring all of our students back. So that's number 4. Number 5 is blended learning for students. In other words, we continue the online services that we're doing now. We bolster them, we burnish them up and make sure that they're top quality. But then we have weekly check-ins where 1/5 of the students would check in every day and come to school. So there would be connections with your teachers 1 day a week, sort of like in college, what you would do, you'd have a TA who checks in with you and you make sure that all of the work's getting done. So our teachers would meet with that 1/5 group. Our teachers would be in every day at the schools, and they would meet with that group, and then that group would go home. The next group would come in the next day, and meanwhile, they're all learning online. The reason that we would do this is this would cut the population to 1/5, and we would have 600 students or so in the school district at any time. All of our teachers would be in. They'd be working, and that's part of this scenario. But the students would come in at 600 at a time for the 3,000. And then finally, scenario 6 would be open the district online only until January 2nd, 2021, while we wait for a vaccine. So it would be a way to make sure our students were the safest. I'm not saying that we're choosing any of these options. I just want you to know that these are the 6 scenarios that we have looked at, and we will see what the state does with their direction. So that's it. Please take a look at our report. Tell me what you think. Let us know. cmck1@vtsd.com or K Divino, Miss Divino, @vtsd.com. Let us know what you think. But please, parents, please take part in that survey so that we have as many results as possible. Thank you very much.